Have you ever found yourself caught in a relationship that leaves you feeling drained, unappreciated, or constantly questioning your worth? Maybe it's with a friend, a partner, or even a family member, someone whose needs and desires always seem to come first, leaving you in the shadows. It's like being stuck in an emotional storm, constantly trying to navigate the rough waters, yet never finding peace. If this sounds familiar, you may be dealing with a narcissist. But here's the real dilemma. How do you know when to continue showing compassion and when it's time to walk away? The Buddhist path teaches us to cultivate kindness and understanding, but it also emphasizes the importance of balance and protecting our inner peace. In this video, we're going to explore the delicate line between compassion and self-preservation. Together, we'll dive deep into the teachings of Buddhism and look at when, despite our best efforts, it's time to completely detach yourself from a narcissist. We'll also explore powerful Buddhist practices that can help you release the emotional bonds keeping you trapped in the cycle of their manipulation. By the end of this video, you'll not only have clarity on when to let go, but you'll also learn practical ways to reclaim your peace and move forward with wisdom and compassion. So stick with me. This journey could be the most important step toward your emotional freedom. Let's start by understanding narcissism through a Buddhist lens. Narcissism, at its core, is rooted in an inflated sense of self, constant desire for validation, and an unhealthy attachment to the ego. These individuals tend to manipulate others, drawing energy and attention to feed their fragile self-image. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering, whether it's attachment to people, material things, or even our own egos. Narcissists, however, are trapped in a deep attachment to their false sense of superiority, creating endless cycles of suffering, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. A key Buddhist concept here is anta, or the idea of non-self. According to the Buddha, clinging to a rigid sense of identity or ego is illusory and leads to suffering. Narcissists are the extreme example of this, fully immersed in their own constructed identity. As you might already guess, this makes it nearly impossible for them to see beyond their own needs. In Buddhism, we are taught the importance of compassion. But what happens when your compassion is being exploited by someone who cannot reciprocate? This is where we must differentiate between compassion and codependence. Compassion in its truest form does not mean sacrificing your own well-being to cater to the endless needs of another, especially someone who is incapable of true empathy. Take the story of Angulimala from the Buddhist scriptures, a man who was once a violent bandit, driven by ego and hatred. The Buddha, with immense compassion, transformed him through his teachings. However, this compassion was grounded in wisdom. The Buddha approached Angulimala only when the time was right, when Angulimala was open to change. It was not blind compassion. But here's the key lesson. Narcissists, unlike Angulimala, often do not reach this point of openness. Their deep attachment to the ego shields them from true self-awareness or change, making your efforts to help them fruitless and, over time, destructive to your own mental health. So how do you know when it's time to detach from a narcissist completely? The Buddha spoke of upaya, or skillful means. This refers to the wisdom of knowing how to act appropriately in different situations. Sometimes the most compassionate action is stepping away, especially when you are faced with a person who continuously harms you or takes advantage of your kindness. Here are 3 signs that detachment is the wisest course of action. First is emotional exhaustion. You find yourself emotionally drained after every interaction. Narcissists tend to take and take, leaving you feeling depleted. In Buddhism, this would be seen as an imbalance. Giving without receiving drains your life energy and hinders your own spiritual growth. Second is the loss of self. If you notice that you're losing your sense of self in trying to accommodate the narcissist's needs, this is a serious warning. The Buddha taught the importance of walking the middle path, a life of balance. Constantly putting others' needs before your own, especially when they don't reciprocate, pulls you away from this balance. Third is when toxic patterns repeat. When there's no change in their behavior despite your best efforts, it's time to accept the truth. You cannot change someone who is not willing to change. Narcissists rarely achieve self-awareness or personal growth because of their deep attachment to their ego. These are moments when your practice of detachment, another key Buddhist teaching, comes into play. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means removing yourself from the emotional entanglements that keep you trapped in cycles of suffering. In Buddhism, the idea of detachment often conjures images of monks meditating in silence, removed from the struggles of everyday life. But for most of us, the practice of detachment is something we must learn within our personal relationships. Detachment, in this context, doesn't mean shutting down your emotions or becoming cold. It means finding the strength to step back from situations that cause suffering, while still maintaining a sense of compassion for yourself and others. This is where the Buddhist principle of impermanence comes into play. It says that all things, including relationships, are transient. By holding on to something that is harmful to us, we create more suffering. To make this concept more relatable, let me tell you a story from Buddhist lore, the story of a man who was clinging to a piece of driftwood in a river. The river's current was strong, and the driftwood was heavy, making it harder for the man to swim to safety. Despite his efforts, the man's grip on the driftwood was causing him to sink. A wise onlooker on the shore called out to him, "Let go of the driftwood and you'll float to safety." But the man hesitated. He feared that if he let go, he would drown. Finally, exhausted and unable to hold on any longer, he released the driftwood. To his surprise, the river carried him gently to the shore. In this story, the driftwood represents our attachment to people, especially those like narcissists who are causing us harm. We hold on, believing that we can't survive without them, but in reality, it's the very act of holding on that's dragging us down. The moment we let go, we allow ourselves to find peace and clarity, just like the man in the river. Now, let's break down how we can practice detachment when dealing with a narcissist. This process isn't about a sudden break. It's a journey, one that involves both emotional and spiritual growth. Step 1 is to acknowledge your attachment. You have to honestly recognize how emotionally invested you are in this person. Are you clinging to the hope that they will change? Are you sacrificing your own well-being to keep them in your life? Acknowledging this is a form of mindfulness, a practice central to Buddhism. Be present with your feelings, without judgment, and simply observe the reality of your situation. Step 2 is to set boundaries. Once you've acknowledged the unhealthy attachment, it's time to set boundaries. Boundaries are essential for protecting your emotional and spiritual health. In Buddhist terms, this can be seen as practicing right action, one of the steps on the Noble Eightfold Path. Setting boundaries doesn't mean shutting people out completely. It means creating space where you can maintain your own peace. It could be as simple as limiting contact or declining to engage in conversations that drain your energy. Step 3 is to practice loving-kindness meditation. Detachment doesn't mean resentment or hatred. In fact, holding on to anger toward a narcissist only deepens your suffering. This is where the practice of metta, or loving kindness, comes into play. Here's how you can do it. Start by sitting in a quiet space and closing your eyes. Begin by sending loving kindness to yourself. You might repeat phrases like, "May I be happy, may I be at peace, may I be free from suffering." Then extend this loving kindness to the narcissist without condoning their behavior. Finally, extend this compassion to all beings everywhere. This practice helps release feelings of anger or resentment, so you can detach from the narcissist without emotional baggage. Step 4 is to release control over the outcome. One of the most difficult aspects of detaching from a narcissist is letting go of the hope that you can change them. Buddhism teaches us that the desire to control or change others is another form of attachment. The Buddha reminds us of the truth of impermanence. Everything changes, and we cannot force anyone to grow or evolve. The only control we truly have is over our own actions and responses. By practicing this form of mindfulness, you begin to let go of the emotional charge that ties you to the narcissist. You accept them as they are, but also recognize the need to protect your own peace. So, when is it time to completely detach from a narcissist? The answer lies in the balance between compassion and self-care. In our effort to be compassionate, we often forget one of the most important lessons Buddhism teaches us: that we must first be compassionate toward ourselves. The middle path, the path of balance, guides us to protect our own inner peace while remaining open-hearted toward others. Remember, detachment doesn't mean abandoning kindness or becoming indifferent. It means letting go of the attachment to outcomes, the need to change others, or the hope that staying will fix everything. Sometimes, the greatest act of love for both yourself and the other person is to walk away. If you've stayed with me till the end of this video, know that you are not alone in this journey. Releasing a toxic relationship is hard, but it's also the first step toward reclaiming your power and finding inner peace. The teachings of Buddhism can help you navigate these turbulent waters, offering you wisdom and serenity when the world around you feels chaotic. Thank you so much for watching. If this video resonated with you, please consider subscribing and sharing it with others who might need this message. Comment below your story of detachment so that our community could learn from it. Remember, your peace is priceless, and you deserve to protect it. Until next time, may you be happy, may you be peaceful, and may you be free from suffering.